Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode of Chit Chat with Cass. Hopefully my voice is a little bit back to normal compared to last week, as my cold is slowly but surely passing. So keeping with the Halloween theme of this month, today we are going to be talking about witches. Well, Hollywood witches really. Top and or favorite witches in TV and movies. I love witches and everything relating to them in film, books, TV, all that jazz. Always have and probably always will. And while witches portrayed in entertainment wouldn't be, I don't know, what would you say, more of the real life thing, I enjoy the magic and the stories that come with so many of these different witch characters.
Witch people.
Witch people.
Aha.
Witches.
Are you sure that's a real spell? A mug! A mug, a mug, a mug, a mug, a mug!
We are the weirdos, mister.
Twitch or not to twitch? That is the question.
My dear, sweet child, that's what I do.
I'm being stalked by psycho killers and I hide in the shower.
You were a sloppy little witch bitch.
So let's talk witches. Witch. According to Google, a woman thought to have magic powers, especially evil ones, popularly depicted as wearing a black cloak and pointed hat and flying on a broomstick. We also have sorceress, enchantress, necromancer, and Wiccan. Or an ugly or unpleasant woman. Well, damn. That's not very nice, Google. A lot of my favorite witches are very pretty and very lovely. So let's go through some popular references and who I love most. So I do need to say, as an adult, I'm still very disappointed that my powers never came in. It was a lifelong dream for me, guys. I'm so disappointed that I'm not a long-lost Hallowell sister, or I'm not from the Cromwell or the Owens line. It's very disappointing. So I must live my witch life through these awesome characters instead. So I have some favorite shows and movies here that I'm sure I've mentioned before, but I also have some other witches that I thought would be good to include in this podcast because they're very popular. Some of you might have heard of them, and they're just other witches that I think of when I think of witches as a whole. So we have like my top favorites and some general characters that I know about. So let's start with some of like the smaller witches when it comes to my favorites, I mean. I'll start with witches from the show and or book Witches of East End. So this show only had about 2 seasons, I believe, and it was based on a book. I haven't personally read the book, but if any of you have, please let me know if it's any good. I'm always looking for book recommendations for Audible. So I started watching the show because, duh, I like witches and things relating to witches, so I tried it out. And I enjoyed it, but sadly this show ended on a cliffhanger, so part of me kind of wants to listen to the books to see if I can know more of like what happened with the story because the show did end on such a cliffhanger. But on the TV show, I really liked Freya. I'm not sure why, but I just really liked her character out of the various witches that you saw on this show. Let's see, we also have, of course, Samantha from Bewitched. I have some of this show on DVD, but I believe they are some of the early black and white episodes. I haven't seen some of the later episodes, actually, but I really enjoyed the early ones. And I mean, it must be a magical show when you can completely switch husbands and no one cares, no one notices. I also think that Darren is a dick. Okay, sorry, not sorry. Never cared for him. I really like Samantha, on the other hand. I loved her, played by Elizabeth Montgomery. It's just a cute, like, 60s into 70s show. And of course, you have other witches on this as well. Tabitha, technically her daughter, her mother Andorra, and Serena, her cousin. And I'm sure there were other guest appearances as well, but those are the ones that I remember offhand. And I'm sure if you are a witch fan like me, then you have probably tried to do the little nose twitch at least one time in your life. Let's see, I also watched the show Secret Circle, which is also based on a book series. And you know what's really messed up about this show? It was just getting good. Just getting to the intense parts, and then they went and canceled it. Thanks a lot, CW. Now, this was a group of witches and male witches. I can't remember if they called them warlocks on that show. Can't remember. But I liked the group of them. Let's see, Cassie was played by Britt Robertson, Adam was played by Thomas Dekker, and Faye was played by Phoebe Tonkin. Those were a couple of the ones that I remember, and I really liked those three. Faye especially, she was a little bit more on the darker side, but I'm a fan of Phoebe Tonkin, so I think that's kind of why I was drawn to Faye. This is another book series, as I said, so I could technically read it and see, like, what the hell happened because the show was canceled. But it's just, like, always disappointing when, like, a show just starts to get good. It's like you're leading up to everything, and then they cancel it. But it was a good show about, like, I guess you could say, like, a coven or, like, you know, a circle, secret circle, of witches from different family members in a town. And I liked, like, the backstory they were going for on that show, and then they canceled it. Now, the same author of Secret Circle stories also wrote Vampire Diaries, which was obviously another show on CW, and had some great witches on it as well. Bonnie Bennett was the main one on Vampire Diaries, but the whole Bennett line of witches were fantastic. I was super into the backstory on that show, and the witches were no different. I just really enjoyed the different generations of the Bennett witches, and they were pretty badass. So, Bonnie was played by Kat Graham, and her Grahams and their ancestors are definitely some of my favorite witches. I really like on Vampire Diaries how you completely see like a transition for Bonnie's character. She starts off first season not even knowing that she's a witch, just like kind of joking that she's a witch because her Grams tells her she is. And then like she progresses and goes even further into this like excellently skilled witch that ends up helping like so many of the characters. She's really great. Let's see, what other witches do I have on this list here through entertainment? The White Witch from Narnia, or, you know, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I did read these books, and I will say I imagined her a bit different compared to what they did with the movie, but I have only seen that film once. But the White Witch is a good evil witch to add to this list. For the movie, she was played by Tilda Swinton, and she wasn't bad. She's just not exactly what I imagined for the White Witch, but, you know, to each their own when you're reading a book. And hey, if you like ASMR, you should definitely check out Crinkle11 ASMR's roleplay of the White Witch. She does a really great job at bringing that character to life. For witches, you can also go back to 1939 with The Wizard of Oz. For that, you have Glenda the Good Witch, as well as more classic-looking Wicked Witch of the West. You even have the Witch of the East, technically, if you count her legs under the house that fell on top of her. I do enjoy the classic witch look for the Wicked Witch of the West. I have dressed up as several different witch styles throughout the Halloweens I have celebrated. Many, many witches. But one year I did do the more green-faced inspired witch, black hat and all, and it was a lot of fun. Clearly for this movie, you have two sides of witch characters. Glenda being the very good witch, and the Wicked Witch being very bad. Or, I guess that really depends on your point of view, because I've heard some people suggest that Glenda is secretly evil, and this was all part of her master plan to take over, but this is not a conspiracy podcast. Wizard of Oz is also based on a book that is apparently completely different from the movie. I did not know this until I watched an episode of the show Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles, but I have not personally read The Wizard of Oz, but now you know. We also have Sabrina the Teenage Witch from the 90s with Melissa Joan Hart. This was like a cute and fun show that I used to watch every now and again, but here's the thing. This new remake of the Sabrina looks so good. Usually, like, remakes, I'm like, oh my god, rolling my eyes, another remake. Why do we have to keep doing this? Hollywood has no ideas. But here's the difference. It's like a different take of Sabrina, okay? It is way darker than the 90s show, that's for sure. The Riverdale producers are making it for Netflix, and it's called The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Now, I've only seen, like, the first trailer, but I'm totally going to check it out. Like, it just looks really good. I will for sure be binging it later this month when it's released. And when you're going to do like a remake or something new with, especially like Sabrina, you know, at least people in my age group grew up watching Sabrina the Teenage Witch. So when you're going to bring that back, you really have to twist it and do something totally different. And it looks like they're doing that with a much darker witch theme. If you would like to go super creepy, you have the Witches movie. Now, I don't have a favorite witch from that movie because they all fucking terrified me as a child. Like, they be, like, taking their faces off, and it's, like, nightmares galore. No thank you. I still watched it, but, oh, That scene gave me nightmares as a child, and that was really difficult to do. As I was like trying to look up different ideas for different witches for this episode, a lot of places suggested the Blair Witch as a top witch, for movies at least. And while I kind of agree with this, it's definitely not like a favorite character for me. And the Blair Witch Project did something that no other movie had done before, and it scared a lot of people. And it was all playing off of that Blair Witch idea. So clearly it was based around the witch, but the character is very up for interpretation in that. And of course, you don't see much of said witch, but it's still very creepy, and the backstories of the Blair Witch are creepy to add into this. You know, back before everyone was making found film movies, this is like really the one that set it all up and freaking terrified people because everyone thought it was real. The Conjuring, that's another good scary or creepy one. It happens to be one of my favorite scary movies, and it does feature an evil witch, who is pretty damn creepy. Definitely adds to the creepiness of the movie. Not only her backstory, the couple times you get to see her, and the jump scares with that. Definitely a creepy ass witch. Let's see, some other more random ones before I dive into my all-time favorites. I decided to include Calypso from Pirates of the Caribbean. She's like a sea witch, right? And I love her look and her style. I just love how the actress plays it, and I just think she's super cool, and she is played by Naomi Harris. So I had to include Calypso. Teen Witch from 1989 was actually on the other day. I was watching bits and pieces of it. I haven't sat down and watched the entire movie in years, but it's really cute. It's with Robin Lively, and I should probably sit down and watch it like start to finish because I was really getting into it the other day. I just didn't have enough time to actually finish the movie. Beautiful Creatures. I read this book before the movie came out. The movie is quite a bit different from the book, but I still enjoy the characters, and this features a lot of witches and or casters, as they call it. Some of my favorite character would be Lena. She's one of the main characters, and her cousin Ridley. They are two very different casters. One is played by Alice Englert, and her cousin is played by Emmy Rossum in the movie. And one is, you know, kind of teetering on the good and bad of the witch as like a nearing birthday comes up, and her cousin has already like been claimed for the dark side, you could say. It's a very interesting story, and I like when, you know, it's not the same type of witch story over and over again. I like different creativity. So like for that one, it was the casters, and you would be claimed on certain birthdays for either the good side or the bad side. And there was different like backstories with it. So I like when there's either different like family trees with witches, like the bloodline, or there's different powers, or it's not just like the same old witch story over and over again. I do like a variety. And so I think that's why I like so many different witch things, is because the more creative they get with the shows or the movies or the books, the more I like it. Because in general, I'm gonna be for anything that's witchy. So the more creative, the better. Let's see, I more recently saw Into the Woods, which, like, side note, I really did not care for this musical. I had heard such fantastic things about it, and I thought it sucked. I will probably never watch that again. But the best part of the movie for me was Meryl Streep's witch character. So I thought, like, what the hell? Let's add her to this. When she is her, like, more creepy, like, gray-haired witchy, she's, like, very entertaining. And even like towards the end where she kind of transforms, I guess. I saw this movie once. I'm sorry if I get this wrong. But she's like super beautiful, and it's just like different variations of a witch character again. And of course, you can't really talk about witches without going a little bit into Disney or fairy tales. You have so many different witches in these types of stories. So just some of them really, Ursula the Sea Witch, you know, from Little Mermaid. Poor unfortunate souls. Mother Gothel from Tangled. The Enchantress from Beauty and the Beast, which a lot of people think is a villain, but hey, Beast was an asshole, okay? He needed to learn his lesson and be turned into a beast for a while. I actually really like that opening of the cartoon. I guess they kind of showed in the newer one with Emma Watson. But the story of the Enchantress turning everybody, I really like that story. And then you have like the evil queen from Snow White. And if you're going to mention the evil queen from the cartoon, you of course have to mention Regina. aka the evil queen from the show Once Upon a Time. I love Regina. I can't hate her. Even when she's evil, I love her. I want her wardrobe with a passion. Oh my god, her outfits are fantastic. She's played by Lana Parrilla and is easily my favorite character on the show. She's amazing. I love her so much. And there's a nice mix of other witches on Once Upon a Time as well, because you do have different fairy tales emerging in and out, but Regina is my favorite all the way. Let's see, we have Queen Narcissa from the movie Enchanted. You know, just another like Disney, you know, fairy tale type movie that could be looped in with the rest of the Disney witches. And then just last couple random entries for this episode would be like Sleepy Hollow stuff. Big fan of Sleepy Hollow, both the movie and the TV show. The movie is one of my favorites to watch around Halloween. It's one of my favorite Tim Burton ones, up there with like Beetlejuice. Or honestly, I probably like watch them year round because Halloween can be year round for me. But Sleepy Hollow is a favorite of mine. And without giving like too many spoilers away, there are a few witches in both, like with the movie and the TV show. There's a variety of the same character depending on what you're reading or watching. So you have like the movie, the show, and the book. All similar though, but there are some witch-related themes and different characters referenced within that. And on the TV show, there's a specific witch that I really got into. I really liked. Oh, and hey, how about Casper Meets Wendy? Did you guys ever watch that movie? Where like Hilary Duff is a cute little witch? I used to watch that like all the time around Halloween, and she's got like the 3 aunts that like are mean to her, but they're all witches. So now let's move into some of the more big favorites when it comes to witches or things that feature witches. If you know me, you probably know that Charmed is, of course, on this list. Charmed was easily one of my favorite TV shows growing up, and I know a lot of people are asking me what I think about the reboot or the remake series they are doing, and I have very mixed feelings about it. I was talked into recording the first episode, and that actually airs the day that I'm posting this podcast, okay? So at the moment of recording this, I have not seen the pilot for the new Charmed series, and I have no thoughts on it. I guess I'm going to be giving it a shot, but my hopes aren't exactly high because, like I said, Charmed was one of my favorite series, and I don't think it needs a remake. So back to the original Charmed, there are a great mix of witches and magical creatures throughout this show, but I'll be focusing on like the Hallowell family. So we have 4 sisters. The oldest is Prue, which is one of my favorites. I say that, but I really do love all the sisters for different reasons. Although, whenever I'm asked what characters I'm similar to, I always include Prue on my list. Like, because she's one of my faves, but she's similar to me in different ways, really. I've noticed, especially as I've aged. She was played by Shannon Doherty. I also really wanted telekinesis power, like Prue. You know, astral projection, maybe, but telekinesis has always been something that I thought would be so cool. Like, it would be the best power ever. There's so many different things you could do with it. I wanted telekinesis. So, yeah, Prue needed to be on this list. And then next we have Piper. I also love Piper, played by Holly Marie Combs. I always thought that Piper was like the funniest sister, or like the sassiest even. I definitely loved her wittiness. And I really loved her different storylines, whether they were sad or entertaining or a mix of both. Her powers were freezing things and blowing them up. I always really liked the freezing power best. Not that like blowing up things isn't cool, but I thought that there was a lot of really cool parts and scenes with Piper freezing time and how other witches were immune to her freezing time. Different like aspects of that. There's a lot of different stories that I liked with Charmed, different rules for like witches or their powers or, you know, like personal gain. And this is definitely another one that like, it's about a family tree of witches and it's passed down generation to generation, you know, those type of things that I really get into. Like Charmed did a lot of that, introducing a lot of those things to me at a young age. Then we have Phoebe, played by Alyssa Milano. Phoebe has premonitions, flying powers, and eventually she actually became an empath. So Phoebe's character changed a lot over the various seasons of Charmed, and you know what? I'm still bitter. I still wish she would have ended up with Cole. I don't want her with Cupid. No, not a fan. Not a fan, not a fan. Then we have Paige, played by Rose McGowan. She was half white lighter, so you have her telekinesis power that was mixed with orbing abilities and then other white lighter powers. So when Paige came into the show, it was like a big mix-up, obviously. But it's still like, I think it's kind of like revamped the show a bit, and obviously it was successful because they continued on for several more years. And that's another thing that I really liked about Charmed. You had the witches, but then you had the white lighters and, or the warlocks or the demons they were battling. There was like the elders, which were in control of the white lighters. The source controlled the underworld with the demons. I also really liked their Book of Shadows that was also passed down throughout the generations. There's just a lot of things that I love about Charmed, and sometimes because I did grow up with Charmed, I will compare other witch things, movies or shows to Charmed, and I see where they like pull from different things, and some storylines repeat, but once again, like I said, creativity is always appreciated. And for Charmed, I also have to mention Grams. Their grandmother was a badass. Their mom, Patty, which I also enjoyed seeing in various flashbacks or magical times. And then to start their line was Melinda Warren. So Charmed was like such a huge part of my childhood and is still one of my favorite shows. It was absolutely positively perfect for this witch podcast. Next, we have a movie that I have to watch every October, and that is Hocus Pocus. So, for our Sanderson sisters, we have Bette Midler as Winifred, Sarah Jessica Parker as Sarah, and Kathy Najimy as Mary. Winifred was always my favorite in all her bitchiness, and she has some of my favorite lines in this movie, and I say them all the time. Like, one other glorious morning makes me sick. Sarah was a little ditzy, but entertaining at the same time, and actually one of my favorite parts is when she sings Come Little Children. And Mary was always funny as well. This movie, fit right into my love for witches and Halloween-themed things, so of course it easily became a favorite October movie for me. I know it's a pretty popular movie for a lot of people, especially this month, and they are remaking it, but let's pretend that doesn't exist because I'm not interested in it. Then we have a witch movie of the 90s, and that is, of course, The Craft. A lot of people say that this movie actually inspired them to create Charmed. I mean, even the introduction song is in that movie. Like, How Soon Is Now is in both. Granted, the entire Craft soundtrack is amazing. I love it. This stars Robin Tooney, Fairuza Balk, did I say her name right? God, I hope so, Neve Campbell, and Rachel True. So this one dives a little darker into the witchy stuff and kind of shows you how spells can backfire or maybe not exactly work out how you intended it to. I think some people actually really consider this to be a horror movie, but then there was little old Cassie watching this like it was nothing as a little munchkin. Let's see, Sarah is the main character in this film, and I think she was probably my favorite, although I do have to praise how crazy Nancy gets in this movie. She definitely goes off the deep end with her magic and so on, and the actress does a really good job at doing that crazy vibe. But it is a great film. I love watching it. I love listening to the soundtrack. And it has all of those perfect witchy vibes when I'm feeling very witchy. And I do think it's being remade as well. Ugh. Next, we really have a great one from my childhood. Back when Disney made really good Halloween original movies. Do you guys remember those days? Are you around my age? Because Disney used to make some bomb Halloween movies. And then they stopped. But this one is Halloween Town. I love this movie so much. I would watch it so often, and I still really enjoy this movie. I'd say that the two main witches in this are Aggie Cromwell and Marnie Piper. But there is also Gwen, Dylan, and Sophie, who are part of the Cromwell line. I love Marnie, played by Kimberly J. Brown. In this, she is a new witch. She's just learning about what her family line is all about, that, she is a witch and what can she do with it. And I really enjoy, especially this first one. There's a couple different sequels, but I really like this one with Marnie specifically. But her grandmother, played by Debbie Reynolds, is the best part of this film, in my opinion. So, story time. I was 6 years old when this movie came out, guys, and I loved it so much. We had magic, we had witches, supernatural stuff. This was all what I was about, even at 6 years old. But obviously, I didn't really know how big of a star Debbie Reynolds was, okay? I didn't I didn't know that she was like Debbie freaking Reynolds, right? To me, she was just Grandma Aggie. So when my dad was trying to explain to me that she was like really famous, he basically had to say that she's Princess Leia's mom in real life. And of course, I knew who Princess Leia was, so that just made Grandma Aggie a million times cooler. But I do love this movie. I really love the Cromwell line and its like relation to Halloween Town. This is another like, family tree type of witchy movie that I really enjoy. And it definitely needs to be like on the list of like favorite witch family, if you will. And, real Halloween Town can be fun, but dear God, is it busy as fuck during this time of year. Oh, mentioning Disney, I almost forgot to mention Twitches. That was another really good Disney original movie with Tia and Tamara Mowry. I think that was based on a book series too, but I didn't read that. I really did get into, that movie as well. Those two movies, actually. There's two of them, first and second, I believe. But once again, it was like a Halloween movie that came around October. It had witches in it. I'm gonna watch it. So I really got into their different powers. One twin was for day, one was for night. One twin would write stories of her dreams, and the other would draw photos of their magical land. I just really liked the storyline, and they were kind of like, separated at birth, coming together sort of situation. So that's just another good Disney witch movie. So we can't really talk about witches without getting some Harry Potter witches in this episode, of course. There are so many good ones. You obviously have Hermione, which I once again grew up with and who I base my English accent on. If you ever hear me using an accent in one of my videos, it's probably my best take at Emma Watson's accent because she pretty much inspired me. And, can we all agree that Ron and Harry would have died a few million times without Hermione's help, okay? She's an essential character. We also have Ginny, which I really like. I don't know why, so many people, feel the need to hate on Ginny. Calm down, Muggles. She's great. In the book, she really has, some great parts and things that she does. Not all of that was translated to the movies perfectly, but I still really like Ginny. You have other characters as well, Molly Weasley, the badass mom of the bunch. I mean, come on. Who doesn't want to hang out with the Weasley family? And you can't really beat the, not my daughter, you bitch. One of the best Harry Potter lines ever. You have Luna as well, and she's just, such a trippy and chill character. I really wish, Luna would do ASMR. I did, a roleplay of Luna once, and I just wish that she would do it because I think she would be fantastic at it. But I love her voice, her spirit, just all of it. Who else? Professor McGonagall is a great one as well. My favorite part with her is actually in the final movie, Deathly Hallows Part 2. And, she's pretty badass. Love it. And I also have to include Bellatrix because I know she's evil. She's really bad. She's a bad person, but I can't hate her. I love to hate her. She's a villain, but she's so entertaining. I just love Bellatrix. And, she's definitely, one of my top villains. Crazy witch. And being as Harry Potter is so big, I know I'm not mentioning some of the other great witches from that world that J.K. Rowling created, but those were some of the ones that came to my mind. Another fantastic witch family I love is the Owens family, and they are from Practical Magic. I love this movie so much. Looking over this outline, I'm noting that, a lot of these are from the 90s. Was, the 90s the decade of the witch? Weird. But yes, Practical Magic. I love it. We have the Owens family with different generations of witches, and each generation seems to have 2 sisters, 1 redhead, and 1 brunette. You have the aunts played by Stockard Channing and Diane Wiest, who are comical, and they're kind of like the pro witches, you could say, they're the masters of this craft. Then you go to the main sisters, Sally and Jillian, played by Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman. They are the main focus of this film. Sally always reminded me of Piper from Charmed. When, I compare it, I don't know why, I just always thought that they were very similar characters. Now, Sally is more, relaxed or quiet about being a witch, and Jilly was all about the witch life, if you will. And then there are Sally's daughters as well, 2 girls once again. I love the different generations of witches in this, the different traditions and the slight powers between each witch. Not so much active powers like you would see on Charmed, but just little traits where they work their magic or the specialties that each sister has. I really enjoy it. And I want their house. I want their house so bad. It's like dream house goals. So to end off this episode, I wanted to talk about something that is more current for witches, and that is American Horror Story. So the current season is the crossover between Murder House and Coven season, which those two are my favorite seasons. So it was safe to say that I was pretty pumped for this new season, and so far, I'm loving it. It's fantastic. With this crossover, we get to see familiar witch faces from Coven, and even some new ones as well. So it's very exciting for the fans of the witches. Just a heads up, I'm going to talk a little bit about the current season, so beware of some minor spoilers for this season and past ones, just in case you aren't caught up. So I love everyone. Cordelia is definitely probably my favorite. I geeked out when she became Supreme at the end of Coven season, and like, her becoming Supreme is probably like one of my favorite scenes from that season. But I just love her as a Supreme, and, you know, bring on the badassness. I'm all about this storyline of, you know, like the Coven having a Supreme, or like the Seven Wonders. This is once again like the different creativity of like doing like a witch storyline, but bringing something new to it. So I really dug on Coven season, and I'm so happy the witches are back in this one. Let's see, Zoe I also love, but I'm a big fan of Tasia, so I'm not sure I could ever dislike her. Although, you know, some of her powers are pretty interesting, you know. What, she can, like, screw people to death? Very interesting power. Now, Queenie has a pretty awesome power. It's pretty badass. Like, she's like a human voodoo doll, which makes for some crazy scenes, and, like, the way she can use her powers on people, I, like, really like her magic, and I think that's like super creative of an idea. It's like, you can hurt yourself, but it doesn't hurt you, it hurts somebody else because you're the voodoo doll. It's crazy. I love it. Queenie's great. And then we have Misty. I love her so much. She's like a little swamp hippie vibe. I love it. And, you know, she can bring things back to life, which is very cool. And I think this is probably like Lily Rabe's best character from American Horror Story, in my opinion. At least it's my favorite Lily Rabe character. And then we have, like, Fiona. As bad or evil as she was, Jessica Lange is amazing. And she's another villain that I just can't hate. She was badass, you know, she was a shitty Supreme. But she was still, like, pretty awesome. And she had, like, her great moments with her various powers. And I can't dislike Jessica Lange. She's so good. I mean, hell, this series even has Stevie Nicks in it as a white witch. That's freaking awesome. Into the new season, we have introduced some new witches, and one of them is Mallory. Yes, Mallory is a witch. She is played by Billie Lourd, and one of the biggest things I wanted from this season was for Mallory to be a witch of some kind, okay? I'm crazy, but listen. I'm a weirdo witch nerd, and I don't know, I just needed this to happen, okay? I mentioned Halloween Town, and if you aren't aware, Billie Lourd is Debbie Reynolds' real-life granddaughter, okay? So I immediately make the connection in my head, American Horror Story to Halloween Town. I realize there's no real connection, but that's how my mind works, all right? So when it was announced that the witches would be in this season and Billie Lourd was going to, I was like, oh my gosh, please make her a witch, because then in my head I can say that Mallory is somehow connected to the Cromwell line because her grandma's Debbie Reynolds. So please do that. Please make Mallory a witch. I just love the witches in Coven and in Halloween Town. And so, like, making that connection was just, like, funny and cool to me. That's how my brain works. And hell, they mentioned how Mallory's grandma said their bloodline dates back to Salem. And you know what? I will take that as a connection. They probably didn't mean it that way, but I loved the grandmother reference because my mind went to Aggie Cromwell. But yes, I really wanted Mallory to be a witch, so I'm really happy that she is. And the character is very interesting. At first, it was like she was kind of like a very small side character, and so I'm glad that it looks as if they're kind of going to make her a little bit bigger of a part, at least where we are currently with the show. It's very interesting, and I can't wait to see like more of what she can do. You know, they mentioned that like she has very interesting powers they haven't seen before, and then they did like an identity spell on her, whatever that means. Like, so who is she really? It's all very, very interesting. And, you know, there's characters, you know, Madison Montgomery. She's not one of my favorites. Think she's a bitch. All my love to Emma Roberts, though, because I do love her. But she's not one of my favorites, but I'm really happy that she's back for this season. Same thing goes for, what is her name? I always forget her name. It's like Myrtle. I'm also happy to see her back, but a little confused because at the time that I'm recording this, you know, they haven't explained why she's back from the dead. Like, everybody else has had, like, an explanation, but at the end of Coven, they burned her at the stake. So why is she back? I'm a little confused on that. Maybe they're going to reveal that later, or it's just going to be like a loose end that they didn't tie up. Not quite sure, but I'm happy to see her back. So those are a lot of witches I could think of, or the ones that I go to in my mind when thinking of like entertaining witches, you know, entertainment, you know, if that's through book or film or movie, TV shows, and all of that witchy jazz. I also have this book, How to Hang a Witch, on my Audible, but I haven't started listening to it yet. I'm very curious to see if I like it, as, you know, with most related witch content, I'm very curious to see what their take is, what the backstory will be, how it will differ from other witch storylines. So I'm curious to start that. So what do you guys think? Did I miss any of your favorite witches? Who is your favorite witch from like entertainment, whether that be book, TV show, movie, video game, even comic? There's like so many different places that you could reference a witch from. Who is your favorite witch? And, you know, did you ever want to be a witch? Did you ever want magical powers? Because I sure did. When's my telekinesis kicking in? Come on. Come on. I didn't get a Hogwarts letter. I'm not part of the Hallowell line. I'm not a Cromwell witch. This is some bullshit. Alright, guys. I hope you've enjoyed my witchy podcast. And I have some more Halloween episodes for the rest of this month and new Halloween content on both of my channels. I hope you are subscribed. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you guys in the next episode.